Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that. But don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 251. Eric Holmes. I'm joined by Eric Holmes. How do I sound? Do I sound overmodulated? Over what? Overbearing? Am I okay?
You sound absolutely beautiful, Greg.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, you sound beautiful as well. We just got done listening to Bruce Purkey's, whatever his Bruce Purkey in the Attic segment, which will be at the tail end of this podcast episode. Again, episode 251. Bruce has reviews of, I believe, Widow Clicqout, a movie that I don't think Eric and I got into it. Eric, did you see Widow Clicqout? No, I didn't see Widow Clicqout. But we did see this movie called Oddity. So Eric and I will have a review of Oddity. Eric will have a review of a movie called Clearcut. Let's see if there's a clear-cut way to Eric to really love this movie or not. I'm actually halfway through Clearcut, so I can give not a review, but sort of just initial thoughts so far. I'm excited to, look, spoiler alert, I'm excited to finish the second half of Clearcut. We'll see if Eric Holmes concurs on my take on this movie, because he actually saw the entire film. Last but not least is a World War I movie from an Australian point of view called Before Dawn. I saw that, and I will talk about that very, very quickly. Eric also saw on the recommends, he has Longlegs. There's a movie I saw called Touch. And Eric has a movie called The Acolyte, which we're going to spend all of 20 seconds on. Eric, what did you think of The Acolyte? Should people watch it? 19. 18,
people seem to hate
yes?
it, but I do not.
Okay, what do you love about it so much?
Basically, it takes the idea of so what you know about Jedi is that they get children at a very young age and indoctrinate them into a Jedi way. Mm-hmm. And it's just like one of those things in the Star Wars that just kind of people gloss over. But I think the Acolyte really dives deep into that, going, that's a little weird, isn't it?
Okay.
And
is it finished? Are the episodes all finished?
Yeah, the last episode of this season came out yesterday.
Okay, yesterday. So, yeah. Okay, and how was should people watch it then from your point of view?
I think so, but just looking online, people seem to hate it. My guess is that, from what I can tell, is that I don't know, they had some character that shouldn't have been alive. Like they're more interested in the lore and the details of that than they are of what the show's actually saying. And I think what the show's saying is really interesting. Okay,
so your time was not wasted on The Acolyte.
No, in fact, I just watched the one episode, just like I'm bored, I'll watch it. And I was like, all right, this is pretty good. Then I watched another episode and then another, and I was like, yeah, this show's pretty great. I love this.
Okay. And people should watch The Acolyte because fill in the blank, or people who blah, blah should watch The Acolyte. Because
if you want Star Wars to deal with themes and stories beyond who Rey's parents are, or who Yoda's grandfather is, or any of that nonsense, if you actually want a story that kind of delves into the lore and kind of looks at it from a different light, different acolyte, that'd be your cup of tea. If you just want more of the same, then probably steer clear.
Okay, fair enough. There it comes. Look, by the way, Patreon, we're going to actually do Patreon a little bit earlier this month. Instead of like the last day of the month, we're doing it next week. Bruce Purkey will actually join us for Patreon. It's his month. This is the spotlight of the year 2006. The movies that we are covering this month for Patreon are Brick. No, it's not the Ben Folds 5 song. It's a movie called Brick, directed by one of the Star Wars filmmakers, Ryan Johnson.
The director of, here's another hot take, the director of the greatest Star Wars movie ever made.
Okay, that's on record. And it's the greatest Star Wars movie ever made because blank. What, Eric Holmes?
Same thing I said about The Acolyte. It takes what the Lord gave you and just looked at it from different points of view.
Very good. You like different points of view. I'm good with that. And so Brick is our number one pick for Patreon. Number two pick is Slither from director James Gunn. This is James Gunn when he was an indie filmmaker before he became the head honcho over at the DC universe, way before his string of luck started to really monumentally just grow thanks to his Guardians of the Galaxy experience. So this is Gunn before all that stuff. Slither and Brick. Eric Holmes and I and Bruce Purkey will be reviewing it next week. It'll be released to our Patreon, CinemAddicts Patreon members next week. So join us for a $5 catch-all fee. This is where I wish I had music. We don't have music, Eric, because me, you, and Bruce are poor. This is where Eric Holmes, the pitch man, comes. Eric Holmes, what do you want to pitch this week? Anything? Sauce, your life, DJing, whatever, or our merch. What do you want to plug? Anderson? TLV.
Yeah, Film Vault's having their live show August 3rd, so I'm going to go to that. Also,
we're gonna have lunch, right? We're gonna have lunch, me and you. Those days. I'm thinking maybe Monday before TFV somewhere. I don't know.
I'd also like to pitch the merch site. It would appear that someone bought a shower curtain, so I believe we have a murderer amongst our ranks.
Okay, please. Someone actually bought a shower curtain over at cinematicspodcast.com. Do you know who it is?
I do.
Can you name that person?
The Mitch Burns.
Mitch Burns. Thank you so much from the Hollywood Persona for your purchase of a cinematic shower curtain. Please leave your review on our very good Eric Holmes. Wow. And very, very good. Mitch Burns, thank you so much, podcaster for the Hollywood Persona. Thank you for your purchase. Tell us what you think of the shower curtain once it gets to your domicile. Yes.
He also wanted to recommend a movie for buying the shower curtain, and I said yes.
Yes. 100%.
And I'm looking for what that movie is. You know what? I'll get to it later.
Don't worry. Mitch Burns, you are listening to this episode. If you are listening to this episode, and if Eric doesn't track it down by the end of this episode, please tell us the movie you want me, Bruce, and Eric to review. Thanks again for your patronage. By the way, cinematicspodcast.com. We have shirts. We have paddle tennis, whatever things. What else do we have, Eric? We have horse-drawn carriages.
The movie is Mommy by Xavier Dolan.
Okay. Mommy.
2014 movie.
That is a movie that we're going. Thank you.
And also, I should also point out, Angie Clark was going to buy a shower curtain once, and I talked her out of it. So, Angie, if you want to recommend a movie too for wanting to buy a shower curtain, I suppose that'll work as well.
Yes, Angie Clark. I think a couple of years ago she bought a hoodie from CinemAddicts. Thank you so much. Again, cinematicspodcast.com. If you want to support us with a purchase of a shirt, a coffee mug, stickers, Eric Holmes has built that website pretty well as far as the merch goes. So thank you so much for that, or listening, and our Patreon, yada yada. This ends our pitch segment for CinemAddicts. Bruce Purkey, thank you again for your what's your name? Bruce Purkey's segment that ends. He's talking about some attic thing. Bruce Purkey in the attic. Is there a cinematic spin-off that we should put Bruce at the end? His segment.
I don't know. I like that.
Cinema Man.
Bruce's sin in attic. I don't know.
Purkey sins in an attic. Who knows? Look, let's get to our features. Do you want to say anything before we get to our features, Eric Holmes?
We'll put Bruce in the box. There you go.
Bruce in the box. All right. So we have a lot of stuff to cover for this episode. First off, Oddity. By the way, Bruce Purkey reviews Oddity. Check out his take, which, by the way, I do not agree with. Let's see if I agree with Eric Holmes' take. Now, this movie, it's very interesting. It centers on a woman who we follow in the beginning. It's not a spoiler. She is very scared of maintaining this really beautiful, sort of old school, I wouldn't say mansion, but actually it looks like a mansion, very spacious, and it's just an old school, scary looking, haunted mansion looking place. Her name is Danny. And one night, she's murdered. Danny is murdered within the first 10 minutes of the movie. That's not a spoiler. That's the premise of the thing. What happens from her murder is who's actually responsible for her murder is supposedly an inmate at a institution who was recently released. And he was knocking on her door the night she was killed and telling her to let him in because he was telling her, there is someone who's going to kill you in the house. Let me in. So the first 10 minutes is absolutely scary because this guy looks like he has one eye, looks like a glass eye, or looks like some kind of pale eye on him. I don't know. He looks very creepy, but you're thinking, should she let him in or not? Maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe there is someone there to kill her. Well, whether it's him or there was someone in the house, you're going to find out during the rest of this plot line for Oddity. Again, Danny is murdered. Now it's up to her twin sister, Darcy, who is also played by the same actress. The actress is Carolyn Bracken. She's fantastic in this movie. Her twin sister, Darcy, is a psychic, supposedly. She's blind She runs an antique store, which has very supposedly supernatural elements. She can put her hands on certain objects and supposedly glean how are these objects connected to the life that we live in. Okay, so Danny, now dead, her twin sister Darcy comes to the mansion with her psychic abilities to figure out how her dead sister, who really killed her dead sister. That is the mystery behind Oddity. We also have to mention Gwilym Lee. He plays the Danny's widow. He is a doctor and the sort of the head of this nearby institution where he is quite the powerful figure. Here's the thing. The doctor believes in science and logic, while his late wife, Danny, sort of believed in the supernatural as well. So we'll see what happens. Is this an interesting mystery for 98 minutes? It's from the same, it's written and directed by Damien McCarthy, the same filmmaker behind this movie from 4 years ago, which I still haven't seen. I think Eric Holmes might have seen it. We mention the movie Caveat all the time because this is our running joke. We like to mention the word caveat in as many cinematics episodes as possible. Eric, do you remember actually watching Caveat? I think it was maybe only Bruce Purkey was the one who watched Caveat. Do you remember anything about this?
No, I saw it when it came out.
Okay. Do you have any recollection? Oh, so then I didn't. I was the culprit. Do you
I just remember it was weird as hell. And this one's no different. It's kind of like when you say what the movie's about, I'm like, yeah, all that tracks. But like as I'm watching it, I'm just getting lost. Like I have no idea what's going on. And then, but I'm like,
is it a bad thing?
No, it's a weird thing because I'm still invested. I'm like on the edge of my seat going, all right, wait, what's that? Why is that statue back there? Wait, why is that like why is that floor thing so important? Like I started picking up on things, but none of it ever really connected.
I forgot to mention, thank you, Eric Holmes. Remember that psychic Darcy, she comes to the house and she's still trying to figure out who murdered her sister. Okay. She brings to the house Eric mentioned statue. I think Bruce mentioned it's a golem. For me, it's just a wooden figure that looks like it could it's straight out of the Wicker Man, possibly.
Colm would make sense, I guess.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's this weird looking figure that has holes on the top of its head, and that figure may play an important role in Oddity. We don't know.
I still don't know. I still don't know.
I will tell you after we record my interpretation of Oddity. I will tell you this before we get to your review, Eric. I have not seen Longlegs yet. It is Longlegs, right? I've not seen that movie yet. You can tell me in your recommends whether this movie works for you. But Oddity, so far in the year of 2024, it is the scariest film I have seen thus far. Maybe, Eric, you can correct me and throw out some other movies that are scary, but this scared the living bleep out of me. Here's the thing. The detractors for Oddity will be people who do not like slow burn thrillers. There's a lot of slow burn atmosphere to it, and it's not gory. And I mean, it is violent, but it's not, if you're looking for a gory, violent slasher horror thing, this is not what Oddity is about. It's about building a world. Like Eric was saying, it's weird and creepy and weird as hell. And if you want to get scared, there are some really great moments in Oddity. I really dug this movie. Eric, your review of Oddity.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Most of what was carrying me through was the tone of it and the atmosphere. I was trying to follow like what the story and
is this a scary movie, Eric? It's a scary. People will be scared. Am I wrong on this?
I don't really get scared at movies, so not really. But like that constant threat of dread is always there, and that kind of tone. So in that respect, yeah. But mostly I was just kind of like trying to piece it because like so you had the main story of them trying to figure out who killed her
Danny.
sister.
Yeah.
But then, like, I'm trying to figure out, unless I missed something, like, why aren't the cops involved in this?
That's
like,
true.
why? Like, it's just weird stuff like that, like stuff that it's in the story but doesn't really make sense in real life. And you know, I guess I can kind of get by that. But
I will say this about Oddity, okay? And I don't know if you agree on this. I think this director Damien McCarthy, I definitely have to see Caveat after watching Oddity because I'm assuming Caveat had a lesser budget than Oddity. And to think that Oddity essentially is set in two locations. A lot of it is in the interiors of the home. maybe a couple of shots of the exterior of the mansion, and then rooms within this mental institution. But I did not, it still is just a visually immersive movie for me because of the pacing, because of the cinematographer. I never felt like I was watching a cheap movie that needed more locations.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, Eric.
But basically this movie just went right over my head, or it missed a bunch of stuff and didn't connect with me. But I still loved watching it. Like
Okay, I love it.
I would watch this again just because like it just, I don't know, it just drew me in. Even though like everything I was watching, I'm like, I don't get what's going on, but what's going to happen next? Cool, this thing happened. What does that mean? I have no idea what
Eric,
happens next.
without giving too much away, do you think the ending will satisfy people or not? Or do you think I know I'm putting you on the spot here because
The ending confused me even more.
The ending confused you even more.
I got to the ending and I'm like, cool, we're gonna get answers. And then the ending happened. I'm like, well, what the hell is that now?
Okay, sorry, Cinematics listeners, if you're listening to our review of Oddity, I have made the executive decision. By the way, Bruce and Eric are actually my bosses. I'm the short little obese Asian who thinks he's the executive, but I am making this executive decision. We're ending our Cinematics podcast early. I am going to spend the next 20 minutes talking to Eric about the intricacies of Oddity because I don't know, I think it'd be cool. But yeah, I love this movie so much. My rating for Oddity, I think I understood everything about it. And Bruce, Purkey, if you're listening to this podcast of this episode with me and Eric on Cinematics while you're in your bleeping attic with your segments, I do not like your rating. I personally do not like your rating on Oddity because, again, this was the scariest film I've seen. And by the way, Bruce Purkey and everyone who does not like Oddity, by the way, Bruce did, I'm not going to tell you listeners what he gave Oddity. Well, should we? Because I don't want to spoil it for you guys. Let's just say it's not going to be as high as my rating. My rating for Oddity, again, scariest film of the year. I've not seen Longlegs this year yet, but so far, very, very creepy and scary. And I loved everything about this movie. I can't believe I'm going to say this. 5 stars. 5 stars for Oddity. I love Oddity. I'm going to rewatch this. I hope to purchase it if it's on physical media. If you like slow burn, scary, or Eric was saying that some people don't get scared. If you like that feeling of dread for 98 minutes, Oddity is the way to go. 5 stars for me. Eric Holmes, your rating?
I'm still at 4.
Yes.
It's weird because like everything I said sounds like a movie that I would hate. But
Thank you, Eric, the voice of reason. 4 stars. Thank you.
Like with as much as I was confused and trying to piece things together, and also the movie felt like it was trying to say something more that I just wasn't picking up on. Like this is probably a movie I go back and watch again just to like pick up the pieces. And even the ending, where the ending happened, I'm like, okay, like this is all new stuff. Like I don't everything's just like on paper, this sounds like a movie I would hate, but I did not hate it. I enjoyed watching the entire thing.
Why do you think? Is it because of? Okay, so this type of movie you would hate.
I think I'm just intrigued by it.
Okay, intrigued.
It's like I don't get it, but I want to know more.
Okay,
and then like after I was done watching it, I was like, I need to watch that again. Like I feel like I'm missing something. I need to delve back in and like see if I can put the pieces together.
Yes. And by the way, if you ever like looking at your pictures on your iPhone or your camera a little bit more, don't do that because it can get really scary and you might find things in your respective camera or iPhone or whatever device. So I'm saying that certain portions of Oddity, there's a camera in Oddity where if you look at some of the photos, it might scare you. So there's a lot of elements that even if you are confused or lost, like Eric says he is, I think he's underrating I think he understands the movie a lot more than he does. But
okay, here's a question.
Yeah.
Why was there a tent there?
Oh, right.
Like it's just weird things like that. That's like, what that doesn't even make like.
Well, let's just say that's a great question, Eric, and we will address that after we're done recording. Let's just say the tent really fulfills its function within the realm of Oddity. Now, check out what Bruce thinks about that towards the end of the segment. By the way, the Rotten Tomato score, as me and Eric are recording this episode 251, 100% so far, Eric Holmes. So, Oddity, 98 minutes in theaters on Friday. CinemAddicts, folks, listeners, please find it. If you're like want something scary, especially if if it, once it goes to Shudder or streaming, or I don't know, it'll be. This is one of my top recommends for this year. 5 stars for me, 4 stars for Eric. Thank you, Eric, for that 4-star rating. And then Bruce. Oh, Bruce, you disappoint me. Speaking of which, Bruce, we are disappointing Bruce because Eric and I do not have a review of Widow Clicqout. I will just say this out of respect because Bruce did see this movie. Check out that review towards the end of the show. Widow Clicqout, quote, is based on the true story of the Grand Dame of Champagne, Barbie Nicole Ponsardin, who at the age of 20 became Madame Clicquout after marrying the scion of a winemaking family. That Barbie Nicole is played by Haley Bennett, very talented actress, and it's exclusively in theaters July 19th. Also stars Tom Sturridge, Sam Riley, Anson Boone, Leo Sutter, Paul Rees, Natasha O'Keefe, and Ben Miles, running 90 minutes. The director is Thomas Snapper. So Eric and I didn't get the reason why. I'll be honest. The reason why Eric and I couldn't get to Widow Clicqout because he and I were in a 7-day trance over the brilliance of Oddity.
There you go.
Okay, now speaking of brilliance, Clearcut Eric Holmes. I'm gonna say this. It's directed by Brian Skiba. You interviewed Brian Skiba this weekend.
I did.
It's set in the Pacific Northwest. I don't see too many movies that centers on people chopping down trees in the Pacific Northwest, and they bump into a possible drug running scheme. The movie stars Clive Standen. Some people might know him from, he was the head of a TV series several years back on NBC. I think it was Taken, possibly, but Clive Standen, very good leading man. He's in this, but the cast includes Stephen Dorff, Alec Baldwin, Jesse Metcalfe, Tom Welling, if you're a Smallville fan. There are a lot of Lachlan Monroe. You might not know who Lachlan Monroe is, but when you take a look at Lachlan Monroe, you're gonna say, "Wow, I've seen this guy before." And if you haven't seen this guy, if you've never seen Lachlan Monroe before, that means you've never watched a movie before. Because if you look on IMDb, he has 275 credits. Okay, with all of this talent involved, directed by Brian Skiba, Eric Holmes. It centers on this guy named Jack, played by Clive Standen. He goes on a timber job, cutting down tree job, with this seemingly nice guy played by Alec Baldwin. They go out, they start cutting trees, and that's a start. But the thing is, Jack becomes the target of a brutal assault from these very bad criminals. So these criminals include Jesse Metcalfe and the aforementioned Tom Welling. So I'm halfway through it. I'm enjoying it. Eric, you've seen it. Break it down. Is this movie worth a watch? What are the positives and negatives of Clearcut?
Well, so this is kind of like a B movie, sort of. It's got that kind of feel to it, that kind of characters.
It's intentionally a B. It's intentionally a B movie. It's like straight from the 90s. Those like straight to VHS kind of movies.
Has that hillbilly character showed up yet?
Yeah, Stephen Dorff.
No, the meth guy.
Right. Yes. Right. Yeah. That's Lachlan Monroe. He's the one who's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I love
with the crossbow, right? With the crossbow. Yeah.
Yeah, his character's silly but funny. Like his lines are kind of like, lines you've heard people say a million times, but that's kind of what the character is. It's got some strange editing to it. There's like some weird
flashbacks.
Like the establishing shots. Mm-hmm. Like it's just kind of cut together weird.
Interesting.
So there's like a scene, I believe, like someone shoots like the engine and the engine catches fire, but it's like obvious CGI fire. This is kind of the movie you're in for with this one.
Right.
This is probably not a recommend for most people, but it's still kind of silly, and Stephen Dorff's in it. So obviously Stephen Dorff, the lowest a movie can be is like a 1.5 star. Just by all it has to do is have Stephen Dorff in it and be in focus. You get a 1.5 star automatically.
I agree. I love Stephen Dorff.
And yeah, Lachlan Monroe, his character was great. I don't know. This is probably a movie you just get drunk to and just kind of check out. It's like silly and B movie kind of, and that's not much more to it than that.
Okay, what is your rating on Clearcut?
Well, we already established it with Stephen Dorff automatically, star and a half.
Yeah,
but I'll give it an extra star, probably 2.5 stars. If I was drunk watching this, it'd probably bump up to 3.5. But yeah, I'm going 2.5. It was silly, fun, but there was like some strange like filmmaking choices, but
I don't
other
know.
than that,
Well, Eric,
watch it for Stephen Dorff and Lachlan Monroe.
all right, Eric, you are the editor. I am not an editor, but I will tell you this, Clearcut, I wish I could review it. I was not in time before we recorded to finish Clearcut again. Need about maybe 50 minutes left, and it's how long? It's 98 minutes. I'm about almost halfway there. So far, I'm really enjoying it. Again, this serves a certain type of film fan, and watching I just love watching the formula. When you get guys like Alec Baldwin and Stephen Dorff in a movie, you're realizing, okay, well, Brian Skiba, he only has, I don't know, X amount of dollars to spend on this movie.
Yeah.
So obviously Alec Baldwin and Stephen Dorff, they're only going to be in the production for maybe a couple of days, and they're not going to be the main character. If they're the main character, they're going to have to be paid way more money. So it's very interesting to see A-list actors or actors who are probably should be in the lead, but they actually do these small roles in movies like Clearcut. Whereas
I've checked Brian Skiba's IMDb, and he's worked with
a lot.
Yeah, Stephen Dorff a lot.
Yeah, he was Dead Man's Hand.
The two must love each other, and good on them, because.
And I told you, Skiba, one of his next films is called The Gunslingers, and it's with Nicolas Cage, Stephen Dorff, and Heather Graham. So
I'll be there for that.
So I wish again, my fault for not giving a rating for Clearcut, but so far halfway through, I'm really digging it. There is CGI fire, and it's one of these things where it's a little bit over the top on one of the sequences, but I think it's intentionally over the top. And I don't know, just have fun. Whenever I see a Brian Skiba movie or a movie of this ilk, I like to turn my brain off and just have fun watching all of these talented actors get to sort of do some free jazz for about 90 minutes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I think Skiba did a movie several years ago called Pursuit with Emile Hirsch and John Cusack. And most people really do not like that movie, but I just loved how crazy that film was. And so I'm a huge Skiba fan. My apologies again. Clearcut so far for me, I can't even recommend it, but I'm recommending it in the sense that I'm halfway done. And after we record this and I explain Oddity to Eric, I'm going to end up finishing Clearcut, and I'll give you an update on whether I'm a 3-star or 3.5 star, or maybe 2.5 stars for Clearcut. But for now, Clearcut, 2.5 stars from Eric Holmes, almost to the 3-star recommend, but not quite getting there.
This is like a hair away from 3-star banger.
Yes, a hair away.
It's like there's like just some stuff that's kind of a little too, the edges are a little too rough, but I think you get enough beer in you. You could go into Clearcut and come out happy.
I just love what Skiba does with a lot of his movies. I think he also did a movie called The Second. I could be wrong with that, with Ryan Phillippe. I don't have IMDb right now, but I know he did a Western called Dead Man's Hand with Stephen Dorff, with Cole Hauser. Cole Hauser, what was the movie that we liked from Cole Hauser that he was in? Remember from 7 years ago?
Ritual Killer.
The Ritual Killer. He's so good in The Ritual Killer. So you have movies Cole Hauser and Stephen Dorff, and the hero ends up being freaking Jack Kilmer. So I like what he does with these genre films. And Skiba, like he said in your interview, it's one of these things where they give him a budget and he tries to do his best with the parameters that he has. And I think with the parameters that Skiba has, I just have a good time. Again, this is one of sort of my jam. Skiba's movies are sort of my sort of jam. Anyways, 2.5 stars, almost 3 stars for Eric Holmes for Clearcut.
No, almost 3-star banger.
Almost 3-star
3-star banger is different than the 3-star movie.
Okay, before as I continue to disown 3-star banger, Bruce Purkey, where are you not defending Eric Holmes in the 3-star banger? You got to put some more 3-star bangers in your ratings as well, Bruce Purkey. Now, before we get to Longlegs, let's get to Before Dawn. Before Dawn, it's in. Oh, by the way, my fault. I apologize for Clearcut in theaters, on digital, and on demand July 19th. Now, again, in theaters and digital July 19th as well is a World War.
How would Clearcut play in theaters? I think it would play pretty damn good, actually. Yeah. Like it has kind of midnight movie kind of vibes to it.
There is, let's just say, there is a CGI fire sequence involving a really good actor that is pretty hilarious, and I thought was really well done. Anyways, okay, Before Dawn, set in World War I, and it centers on a young man played by Levi Miller. He is leaving his sheep farm, the family's sheep farm in the Australian outback. His father doesn't want him to go, but his 2 buddies tell him, hey, the World War I's almost ending. The war's almost ending. Let's go out to the front. Let's experience the war. Let's be men. Let's make a difference. So this young man, again played by Levi Miller, he leaves his family from the farm, and the rest of the movie, In Before Dawn, centers on how he's trying to survive along with his friends and the people he meets in this company. Not specifically on the field. There are moments of war on the field, but a lot of Before Dawn takes place in the trench warfare situations for Before Dawn. You can tell the budget isn't really it's not a 40 to 50 million, $100 million World War One film, but I think with the budget that they are given, it's a really well done film. The characters involved, really well etched characters. You care and you want each of them to survive the day, survive the months, and the story is really well told. Levi Miller, a lot of you might know him as the lead in that film from 2015, Han, and he was also in A Wrinkle in Time. Another notable thing for Levi Miller is he plays the young Craven in Craven the Hunter coming up, I think, around the corner. Aaron Taylor Johnson plays, well, he doesn't play the young Craven because Craven is actually Sergei. And so he plays a young Sergei in the upcoming Craven the Hunter. And that's something that I think, I don't know, I'm excited to see Levi in that role. And that the main role is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. And it's directed by J.C. Chandor, who, Eric Holmes, will you break your spell and actually go see a Marvel movie because it's directed by J.C. Chandor and Craven the Hunter? Would you actually give it a shot?
I probably will.
You have to, right? All is lost.
I do love J.C. Chandor. I don't think he's writing it though. I think he's just directing it, which I mean,
sure.
That's probably less exciting, I suppose. But
yes, yeah. Well, of course,
my guess is that J.C. Chandor's maybe taking a paycheck, but who knows? We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Nothing wrong.
He deserves it. He's made a bunch of bangers, so if you can get paid, do it.
Yeah. Hey, after the 4 or 5 years of sweat equity that me, you, and Bruce have accumulated from doing this CinemAddicts and Find Your Film stuff, I don't know. We should get paid too, right? I'm fine with a paycheck. Throw out some false ratings on movies, make up movie names, endorsements, sell it to not even the highest bidder, the lowest bidder. How about that, Eric? So we can make our pennies.
If they want us to direct Still Craven, I'll do it. It probably won't be good, but I'll do it.
Yeah. Hey, Eric, we'll do Still Craven. That's So Craven. Who knows? We'll see.
That's So Craven.
All right. So Before Dawn, very well done World War One film. A lot of it's trench warfare. Very good performances. It's basically sort of like 1917 without all that big budget and around it, which is fine. As an indie World War One film, Before Dawn works for me. Theaters and digital July 19th. If you're not able to see it in theaters, I do recommend a rental or a purchase. Oh, definitely a rental for July 19th. It runs 100 minutes, was not a slog, rated R, Before Dawn. My rating is, Eric Holmes, give me the rating that I'm going to give Before Dawn.
4 stars.
4 stars. I am so bleeping predictable. Yes, 4 stars for me for Before Dawn again. Theaters digital July 19th, running 100 minutes, rated R. We're done with our features. Let's get to Longlegs. Eric Holmes, Bruce Purkey cannot stop talking about Longlegs. In fact, towards the end of this episode, Eric Holmes, Bruce has a spoiler discussion of Longlegs. He is crazy about this movie. Do you see why Bruce is so passionate about this film? Eric, just pretty much your take on Longlegs, which stars Nicolas Cage, Maika Monroe, and FYI, I think the plotline is sort of it's a serial killer type of movie with Maika Monroe playing an investigator, and Nicolas Cage is not a spoiler. We all know this, playing the resident bad guy serial killer. What does this movie work for you, Eric Holmes?
For the most part, it did. It's kind of like a Silence of the Lambs, Zodiac 7 sort of movie. And then you haven't seen Longlegs. What do you know about Longlegs?
Well, I know I haven't seen it. I just know that it's getting a lot of divisive reviews. I know it's being compared favorably, I guess, sort of to Silence of the Lambs, but sort of different.
Okay.
And Bruce mentions this in his review or a spoiler discussion of Longlegs towards the end of this episode. He was just saying that some people who really enjoy it, but a lot of people do not like this movie. It's a very divisive film. Do you see why people are very divisive on Longlegs?
Maybe. I guess what I'm having trouble with is I don't know what's spoiler and what isn't, because it doesn't maintain the Silence of the Lambs. It goes in different directions about halfway through or
Okay. That's fine.
third of the way through.
Yeah.
And it becomes a completely different movie towards the end. I would say like it gets a little psychological thriller a little bit.
Are you fine with the change of direction with this movie?
Yeah, yeah. It in fact it had a lot of similarities to Oddity, and like I guess like tone wise, it reminded me a lot of the Black Phone. Probably just because well, this was set in the 90s. I think Black Phone was set in the 70s, but it has that kind of yesteryear kind of feeling to it. That it worked for me. Nicolas Cage doesn't really like he shows up right at the beginning for like a second. You just see like the bottom part of his face, and then he becomes more involved in the movie towards the end. So if you're looking for Nicolas Cage all the way through, you're not going to get that, but he does show up towards the end.
So it's more of a Maika Monroe type of movie, I think.
I don't know,
really?
But this is probably mix a little bit of the Oddity in with the Black Phone, and that's kind of what Longlegs is.
Okay.
Yeah, got some procedural to it. It's got some other things that I don't know if I can talk about, so I'm just trying to avoid it altogether. But yeah, this was a pretty good movie. I'm trying to figure out. I wonder if it's like one of those things because Longlegs got like a lot of buzz before it came out. I wonder if it's one of those things where like the hype hurt it a little bit, maybe. Like it comes out and everyone's no.
Okay, no, you're fine.
No,
you're fine. What is your rating on Longlegs, Eric?
I'd probably go 4 stars on this.
4 stars for Eric Holmes.
I'll 4-star Greg this one too.
4-star Greg. Longlegs. Bruce Purkey, by the way, I think his first rating was maybe 3.5 to 4, and then he bumped it up to 4.5. Then now he's 5 stars on Longlegs. Well, yeah, he's really loving Longlegs so much. Here's my recommend for this week. Came out last week and might be one of these cinematic gems. I hope it gets a little bit more attention. It's a movie called Touch. Not a huge fan of the title because Touch is such a very general moniker. I don't know, Eric, what do you think? Touch, is it too general of a movie name for people to watch in theaters?
Let me try to Google Touch and see what I come up with.
Right. So,
the movie. Oh yeah, the second one down. So okay. I was way off.
All right, so here it is on IMDb. I'm going to say a romantic and thrilling story that spans several decades and continents. Touch follows one man's emotional journey to find his first love, who disappeared 50 years ago before his time runs out. So yeah, there's an elderly man. He just lost his wife. He runs a restaurant, and with his wife's passing, he decides his thoughts and go back to this young Japanese woman he loved some 50 years ago, and he decides to travel back to London, where he met her in London, where he was an idealistic college student, and he had a job. He's a white guy. He had a job working at a Japanese restaurant where the owner was the father of this young woman. Her name's Miko. The main guy, his name is Christopher. So Christopher and Miko's budding friendship and relationship is front and center for Touch. And a lot of this movie deals with the mystery of Christopher, now an elderly man, trying to find Miko and the problems he has actually locating her. Now, here's a big problem. Most of Touch, a big part of Touch in the present day, is set during the lockdown period of COVID. Christopher, while he's also having his own sense of medical problems, he's also in the throes of where everything is sheltering in place. And it makes it even harder for him to find Miko again. He hasn't made contact or seen her for 50 years. And the rest of the movie deals with what happened 50 years ago, how come they never stayed in touch, and what happened with Christopher's life as well. This is an unabashed, romantic, wistful movie. If you love romantic films about memory and the wearying passage of time, I think Touch will really touch you. Personally, it did touch me. And it reminded me back of, this is getting a little bit too personal, and we don't get personal on CinemAddicts. When I was a college student, I had a crush on a young woman as well. Her name was not Miko, but she was Japanese. That's as far as I'm going to take it, because Christopher was a really in Touch, he's a much more charming guy than I ever was over at UCLA. But it makes you, bottom line, it makes you think of your lost loves from back in the day as well. I'm sure Touch will have that same spark of resonance for you. And then the third act, when you find out whether or not Miko is still around, if he finds her, is she alive, is she dead, all of that stuff will be revealed to you. And I think it's a really well done third act as well. Touch is, what am I giving it, Eric Holmes?
Let's go 4 stars.
Let's go 5 stars on Touch. Touch is
Oh,
one of
wow.
my favorite films of this year. 5-star banger for me for Touch. It was just, what's interesting, another interesting thing is, I think Baltasar Kormaker is the director. And check this out. This is his movies that he's done before Touch, right? You're thinking maybe he's done his share of romantic dramas. Well, he's the director of Two Guns. He is also the director of what else? He did Everest, that mountain film Everest. So he's an Contraband. So a lot of his stuff is action based, but this one is completely set in different locations, and it's a beautifully beautiful movie that almost made me start chopping onions towards the end. So Touch, if you can't see it in theaters, please mark this down for your upcoming streaming or rental or on demand, because it's an amazing movie. So 5 stars for me for Touch. Currently, as we speak, as we're recording, it available in theaters. Yes, Eric Holmes. Yeah.
Oh, you got 2 5-star movies this week. It was a good week.
Yeah, pretty good week for me. 5 stars. Well, how about you? I'm not looking at the Google Doc. Was it a decent movie? Well, I mean, you had the 2.5, which is,
see, that's a weird thing. Clearcut's 2.5, but I still liked it.
That's fair. That's fair. All right.
It's just it's got a bunch of rough edges, and there's like some weird things, but like, you know what? I'd take down a case of beer and watch it again.
Okay. Well, look, I don't know I think final pitch things on our show notes for CinemAddicts. If you want, you can rent and purchase some of these movies by just going on Amazon using our links. Me, Bruce, Eric, and Anderson, we receive a cut of the profits as well, a slight commission. So every penny counts. Eric, before we go, you want to say anything before?
Yes, Mitch, thank you for the shower curtain, and I will not tell anyone about your murderous desires. In fact, I don't even know about them. So whatever you do with your shower curtain is between you and the shower curtain.
Yes,
and the person you murdered.
Put on bump. Mitch Burns, again, thank you for the shower curtain. I'm sure you're going to put it to really good and humane use. And again, I think that movie that we're going to review in lieu of your wonderful purchase on our podcast is Mommy, right, Eric Holmes? That's Mommy.
2014, I believe.
Okay, and we will get to it very, very soon, Mr. Burns. And of course, check us out next week on Patreon when we review the movies. We spotlight 2006. We have Brick. We have Slither, so it'll be great. And we'll be joined by Bruce Purkey on Zoom, so it'll be nice to see him.
Have you seen either of those, Brick or Slither?
I've seen Brick, and I'm sure you've seen Brick and Slither, Eric, so these will be easy rewatches for you, I'm assuming, right?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. In fact, I'm more excited for Slither. Like, I remember watching Brick, and I was like, this is fine. I don't see what the big deal is. But Slither, that was rad. I wish James Gunn would go back to those kind of movies. Peter Jackson too, for that matter. You know what I realized, Eric Holmes? Did I do my Sleepy Greg voice the entire thing? I haven't been this. Eric Holmes. Next time we record, Eric, I gotta be the CinemAddicts episode 251. What happened? I mean, you saw 2 5-star movies. You figure you'd be a little more excited about that. I'm sorry, folks, if I went an octave lower on this one, but next time I'll be back for episode 252 with Eric Holmes, and we're gonna have so many things to talk about Patreon, right, Eric? You should next time call me out. This is my fake voice, my fake CinemAddicts voice. I did not have it on for this episode. Do your job, Eric. Did you not notice this? Yeah, let's do it, Greg. Come on. Let's get excited. All right, Eric Holmes. I am signing off from Eric Holmes. And it's not really a sign off because Bruce Purkey is next. So before Bruce Purkey, of course, here's Claire.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining CinemAddicts.
Welcome back to Bruce's Movie Attic. Is that what we're calling this? I don't know. I keep making up names for things. You know, Eric and Greg crept up to the attic and they unchained the crate, let me out, unzipped the mouth of the GIMP outfit I'm wearing all the time, and let me talk about a few movies this week. We have 2 features that I believe Eric and Greg are watching. At least Eric and Greg are going to watch one of the 2, Oddity. And then one of them also might be watching Widow Clicqout. Clicquout. I don't know how to say it. It's French, you know. So I'm going to talk about those two movies. And then I might have a little bit of spoiler discussion of Longlegs. Anyway, let's start with Widow Clicqout, directed by Thomas Napier and starring Haley Bennett as Barbie Nicole, the widow. Haley Bennett, if you remember, probably what I know her most from is the really cool little indie movie from, I don't know, 4 years ago? I don't know, called Swallow. And if you've never heard of that movie, you might check it out. It's pretty interesting. Philippe Clicquot is played by Ben Miles, and then Francois Clicquot, played by Tom Sturridge. There's some other people in here, but those are kind of the main ones. Basic idea of Widow Clicquout. First of all, it is a period piece, very masterpiece theater for you oldies like me. The kind of movie that if Eric watched this, probably was very sad, because this is the kind of movie that he generally does not go for. This kind of slow period piece that's just about sort of dramatic things. I don't know, not usually his cup of tea. So the basic idea here is the recently widowed Barbie, her husband basically owned this vineyard in France, of course, and when he died, you know, the father-in-law comes over and almost immediately is like, well, no, don't worry, we will make sure that you are well taken care of. We'll go ahead and take care and buy this, you know, buy the vineyard off you, so you don't have to, you know, worry about getting people to run it and all this kind of stuff. So essentially she doesn't have to worry her little head as a woman about this vineyard. She doesn't take kindly to that, and she immediately says, nope, I'm going to run it, and father-in-law, you need to let me run it. So obviously he does have the power to say no, really. It is a world where, you know, men pretty much can do that. But he, kind of in the memory of his son, which is kind of what she calls upon, in the memory of her son, or his son, I should say, he allows her to give it a go and see if she can make the vineyard keep being successful under her watch. Which, of course, as a woman in that era, it was kind of an unusual thing. The movie overall, though, does kind of go back and forth. There's lots of flashbacks of kind of her relationship with Francois, which was her husband and the other guy's son, and kind of how they met, how they fell in love, madly in love, how they worked together in the winery. So there's a reason that she thinks she can run it, because she had a lot of influence over the way they were growing and, you know, making the wine and everything. She wasn't just out of nowhere thinking she could do it. And then what led to his death, and I'll kind of leave that vague, because that is sort of a discovery as you go along. And in the middle of this also, Napoleon has put in various blockades as far as people being able to trade with other countries. I think it must be during when he's warring with other countries. So there's a lot of impediments to her selling her wine if it goes well. And she's making some red wine, and that's kind of considered her lower wine, not the greatest stuff. But the stuff she's making, the champagne, of course, is considered her prestige product. So there's two avenues, right? There's the whole story of her and her husband, dead husband, and the story of a woman in this world through various hardships trying to make a go of this really hard and difficult industry to be successful in for anybody. Because when you grow any kind of crop, there's always, you know, the elements and all various things that can cause a downfall of an entire vintage of wine. So all of that is kind of the basic of this. If that sounds interesting to you, I think you might find this mildly interesting. I think it's a very leisurely film. For me, it really didn't have enough there. Like I know you're supposed to be really invested in her, you know, a woman making it in this world. And I think that is a very interesting story. But there was so much stuff there about kind of her love life and her just that really just kind of kept sucking away the story of, you know, a woman in this world trying to make it. And I think the woman in this world trying to make it would kind of have been the more compelling story to me. Also, it kind of got into the hardships of trying to survive with the crops and all that. But once again, that all seemed pretty stereotypical to me, stuff that you've seen versions of many, many times over. What would I rate this movie? Well, you know, I didn't hate it. I had a good time watching it, I guess, overall. I was intrigued enough to watch it all the way through, and it's not long. I think it's like 90 minutes, thank goodness. This is the kind of movie they definitely might stretch out. to 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's only about 90 minutes. So that was good. I'd probably, I'll give it a generous 3 stars. This is borderline not having 3 stars. I would be curious to see what Greg and or Eric rate this. I think if Eric does watch it, he's probably 2 stars maximum, I'm guessing. Did I say Eric or Greg? I lost track of what I was saying. Eric, I would say, would probably be 2 stars. Greg, I think Greg would like it. He might be similar to me. He might be 3.5 stars, maybe 4 stars at the most. I don't think he's going to be super compelled by it either, because it's just, like I said, this is a non-offensive movie. It's well made, it's well acted, but it just doesn't do a lot. And that's kind of its biggest sin, is being kind of middle of the road. Okay, Oddity. Now, Oddity is one that's coming up here. I'm very, very, very interested in, because I really quite liked this little indie movie called Clicquout from about 3 years ago by the same director, Damien McCarthy. And when I saw this movie, Oddity, was coming out, I was very, very intrigued in all the press and everything. And I didn't watch the preview, really. Knowing he made Clicquout was enough and made me want to just kind of check it out, going cold, basically. The only thing I had seen, and it's in all the press work, is this kind of, it's like a full human-sized doll of sorts, but not really a doll. It's like this kind of rough-hewn figure that's just got kind of vague features and kind of an open mouth, so it looks almost like it's screaming or something. I would say it's more of a Gollum kind of a character. No, not Gollum like Lord of the Rings, but like a Gollum like in the kind of classic sense, which is kind of this large, I don't know, cipher human sort of figure that's made out of whatever. In this case, it's supposed to be made out of wood. It could be made out of clay or stone. In fact, probably people know that from Minecraft, because I think there's a bunch of different kind of golems in Minecraft. So anyway, you see that image of that figure in all the press for this. And of course, that is a figure that kind of features prominently in this movie. The beginning of this movie is quite interesting. So it starts out, and you have a woman, and she is Darcy, played by Carolyn Bracken. Carolyn Bracken also plays Darcy's sister, Danny, who comes into the movie for most of the movie. Anyway, the movie starts with Darcy, and she's in this home, this country home that they've been renovating, her and her husband. Her husband's Ted, played by Gwilyn Lee, and he works in a local or a nearby asylum. They call them asylums anymore, I don't know. Darcy is at home alone, and she's been renovating the place. He works at night at the asylum that night, and there's a knock at the door. And she has one of those little sliders like you would look to look out, just like a little eye hole slider. She looks out, and there's a guy there saying like, oh, and previously, like a couple minutes earlier, she had run out to the car to get something and come back into her house, right? She's out in the middle of the country. Right after that, the knock at the door, she slides the slider. There's a man she doesn't know outside the door. Of course, she's a little bit thrown off. He says, hey, don't be afraid of me. I'm here to help. Someone went to the house when you left. There's someone in there with you. You need to get out of there. And she's like, I'm not getting out of here. I don't know who you are. And he's like, you need to, he's in the house there with you. That person's in the house. It's not safe for you. And of course, she's very suspicious. He's like, okay. I'm going to go call for help. It basically goes back and forth for a while. He's trying to get her to let him in. And of course, you're like, don't do that. That's crazy. And that's the setup of the movie, is that. And you don't see it happen, but she is killed. She is murdered. You know that basically right when the next scene after this starts. She is obviously, the stranger came to her door, and she let herself be fooled by him and lets him in. And that's, of course, what led to her murder. Then you quickly go to see Danny, who works at like a curiosity shop, kind of, and not only a Oddity curiosity shop, Oddity, there you get the name, but a curiosity shop that sells supposedly cursed items. In fact, she goes on to talk about this little, like the little bells you ring at like a bellhop bell, like you'd get at a old-fashioned hotel or something. She talks about how it's cursed, and if you ring the bell, like this ghost of the bellhop will come running after you, and everyone who's ever rung the bell has died. And she's telling that to Ted when he comes to visit. He comes to visit his sister-in-law, Danny. So the main story is this. Ted is now dating a new woman. After a while, he's, started dating another woman at the same house where the first woman died. Danny, the sister of the woman who died, shows up at their house and she's brought a gift in a box. like me, kind of in the attic. She's brought a gift in the box. And the gift she has brought is this huge golem-looking thing like I told you about. One of the creepiest, weirdest gifts you would ever give anybody. And if you got that gift, you would definitely be like, what the heck? So that's kind of the basic setup of this movie, right? It's a sister who feels like, her sister was killed and no one seems to be, solving that problem and taking care of it. Or widower and his new girl with the sister-in-law from before, all in this house, kind of an awkward situation, and this giant weird-looking doll. And that's kind of the pretty much the crux of the conflict, I guess you'd say. And for, I would say, 75% of this movie, this big doll thing, golem thing, is just sitting at a chair at the end of the table while all the stuff is going on around it, and you're just waiting for something to happen with it, because obviously it's the creepiest thing you'd have in your house that no one would ever have in their house. So that's it. I guess for me, the best way to think of this movie is it's like an extended episode of Tales from the Crypt. That is the way I would look at it. Not super gory, but definitely having to deal with a wronged person, possible revenge, some kind of supernatural forces, something a little creepy, maybe things not being the way you originally thought they were, stuff like that. Overall, I would say I was definitely a bit disappointed. I kind of thought it would be a little more, a little more unexpected and creative. Like more in the, I guess to me, more in the lines of something earlier this year, like stop motion. I don't know. It just didn't seem to really go places that were really unusual for me, even though there's some stuff around that big golem that is really cool. There's an investigation of the golem at one point that I thought was really good and really going along the lines of where I would have liked this movie to go. But in most places, the movie kind of went places I expected it to go. Now, all that being said, I did have a pretty good time with it as a cool indie, Tales from the Crypt-ish sort of supernatural kind of vengeance movie. I think it works pretty darn well. This would be one of those movies that if you just discovered it by random on a Saturday night, flipping through the various streaming services, and you just happen to watch it, you'd probably be really happy you did, because it's pretty darn solid. But if you went into it like me, expecting, oh man, this is going to be my favorite horror movie of the year kind of a thing, like maybe I didn't expect it to be that great, but I had expectations for it. If you go in with that kind of attitude, you might be a little bit like, oh, well, it was okay. So I guess for me, I'll probably go 3.5 stars. There's enough good stuff here, and it's solidly made, and there's definitely some fun moments and some pretty good tension building. The 3.5 stars seems fair to me. Definitely am interested to see where Damien McCarthy goes, because after a couple movies I've seen by Damien McCarthy, he definitely has kind of an interesting approach and an eye for things. And I think there's a great movie somewhere in the future for Damien McCarthy if that person keeps making movies and keeps getting a chance to have some, at least modest to decent budgets. Oh, and last thing, there is a slight nod in this movie to Caveat, and there is an indication that this is in the Caveat universe. And it almost makes you wonder if he's trying to set up a thing where this Oddity shop is going to produce a whole bunch of different movies based on these cursed objects, which I would not be against that, because that leaves you a chance to make all kinds of interesting different movies, kind of a la Friday the 13th, the TV series, which had nothing to do with Jason, if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, that's the main features for this week. Now, the other movie I saw this week, of course, has been hyped to no end and talked about, oh my gosh, so many people talking about Longlegs. And in fact, if you want a full review of Longlegs, I did one here too a few days ago, and you can find that on the same site you're probably on, the same YouTube channel. Go check it out. I'm sure you already know if you're here, so I'm not going to go through all that. But I do a spoiler-free review, and I don't get into huge depth on it, but I give you a good idea of probably whether you'd like it or not and what it's about. Now, that being said, If you don't want to hear spoilers, you haven't checked it out yet, you're going to go see it in the movies, you're going to wait for it to stream, whatever, then you might want to dip out here because I will hit a few spoilers. But I wanted to get into a couple things about it that I think are interesting. So Longlegs is very divided. A lot of people are hating it, or not hating it, but really disappointed by it. I think a lot of that has to do with the hype and the expectation, which I did mention a little bit in my review. I think the biggest complaint people have of it is that it's, to them, not a good follow through on the investigation that the movie kind of sets up, or that it's kind of just all spelled out with various dumps of information to them throughout the movie, and that they just feel like it's kind of it's an okay but kind of a mediocre investigation movie with a lot of very slow burn kind of energy to it. Now, what I would like to kind of discuss quickly here, I'm not going to go too long on it. I know that you can find some very, very long videos online if you want to. I kind of want to go to like, what does the ending kind of mean, and what is kind of the overall, actually what I think the overall kind of point of the movie, or what is it really exploring here, and why I like it, and why I'm guessing that a lot of people like it as well. The people who do like it, why we like it. I'm not going to speak for everybody. Obviously, people might have totally different reasons that they enjoy this movie, but I'll kind of get into it really quick. First of all, the investigation itself is a bit of a MacGuffin, or a bit of a mislead, and I think that is also what people who don't like it are feeling. The reason I say that is, if you watch the whole movie, you'll know basically that the Lee Harper character, or Harker, sorry, I think I got her name wrong, Lee Harker character, that she is basically been essentially cursed her whole life. And she is under this, quote, kind of a spell, because Longlegs and her mom essentially are in cahoots and murdering all of these innocent families. And that the doll, there is a doll, like many of the dolls for all the scenes, there is a doll of Lee herself. And the idea is that when these dolls are there, that the person the doll is created of is essentially kind of under a spell, kind of, they're not in control anymore of themselves. There's a whole bunch of things that people don't like about Lee's character. A lot of it is her just extreme, kind of her extreme antisocial, almost like unable to really communicate well in society, just very, like people say, on the spectrum, and all this kind of stuff about her, how she's very, very, very awkward in almost any social situation. I think all of that, of course, is explained by the fact that she is essentially in a weird, like low grade level of possession or something, which is kind of interesting. To me, it's interesting. I don't know. Some people, maybe it's not. It's just boring to them. But the biggest point of this movie, I think, is when you watch these kind of movies, you're expecting like, oh, with the ingenuity and the hard work and the just tenacity of a character like Clarice Starling and her bravery and all this stuff, she is eventually going to get through and solve the mystery and get the bad guy. This movie is not like that. That's not the thrust of this movie. Is much more like, and I said before, like Cure, but even more so, and I hadn't thought about this at the time, this is even more like a movie like, we just talked about it, Kill List, or Wicker Man. Now you might say like, well, what does this have to do with Wicker Man? This isn't like some pagan folk horror movie. No, but it's a movie about a main character who thinks they're in control of their life and thinks they are making decisions that change the path of their life, and thinks that they are affecting the events of their life, when really they are merely a puppet or a, quote, doll. They are undergoing and part of forces they don't understand and part of a plot they don't understand. She does not understand the plot she's part of with this demonic Satanist stuff that Longlegs is doing. I think the reason that beginning part doesn't work for some people and really does work for me is that the whole beginning part in the investigation is essentially putting us in her shoes. A lot of the time we're put in her shoes. So we're there to think that she's doing all these things, even if she's like, quote, partially psychic or whatever, which I would also crop up to her being weirdly somewhat possessed as well, or under the influence at least, that we think she's doing things and accomplishing things, and we're wrong too. We are also being manipulated by the movie in the same way she's being manipulated by Longlegs. So I think that there's a parallelism there that really I like a lot. Another thing I've heard people complain about is that there's like a exposition dump at one point, or a couple points in this movie, when it's coming from her boss and he's telling her about the case. I think that's fair, because you've got to know what she needs to know, unless you're going to actually just follow along and discover it as she does it, which would make it an even longer movie or a totally different movie. So he's going to give her some information about the murder cases so you understand the basic parameters. That doesn't bother me at all. That's no different than any kind of a procedural as far as I'm concerned. The one that people get later is the one that people are annoyed by, I think. And there's a moment where she goes back to her house. She finds a bunch of Polaroids. She's looking through them. And there's this photo of Longlegs that she had taken, or had been taken when she was a little girl and met him. And she had absolutely repressed, or had been forced to repress, this memory. So it hits her. It's almost like one of the few jump scares in the movie. It hits her like a ton of bricks. And then we have this huge information dump on us of what has really been going on, what Longlegs and her mother have been doing specifically. Now, once again, people are like, that's cheap. Why didn't we get to discover that in a more organic way? But also, I appreciate it because not only are we getting hit with it like she's getting hit with it, but also, once again, discovering the stuff in an organic way is kind of not the point of it, right? The point is, investigations don't actually uncover the truth, because the truth has been manipulated for you the whole time. So they are manipulating this information until the very last minute, and then you are getting it thrown in your face to, just like her. That's all I'm trying to say. It's kind of paralleling that as well. Another thing I want to talk about is the very, very end. I know I'm kind of rambling. I didn't write a script down. I didn't write notes. Sorry, guys. If this is boring, you've already left. Whatever. The very, very end people have been wondering about as well. So all the discoveries have happened. Of course, and it's pretty highly foretold for you anyway, you know that her partner's, what was his name again? Oh, I forget people's name. Agent Carter. So Agent Carter, her partner's daughter, is having a birthday really soon. We know that. So obviously she's probably going to be a new victim. That is true. After Lee has discovered everything that's going on, she has to race over there to try to stop her mom from giving the doll and murdering the family and her partner, as another act of Longlegs after he's already gone from the scene, because Lee's mom is basically another disciple of Satan at this point. She's sold her soul. So Lee gets there and everyone's still alive, but her mom is there, the doll is there, the kid seems to be enthralled by the doll and unable to really do much of anything, kind of being a daze. Obviously, both parents are also in a kind of a weird daze as well. Agent Carter and the mom leave the room, and of course, you hear sounds and you know that he's killing the mom. He comes back in. Lee, gets the gun on him and says, "Don't come any closer. I'm going to have to kill you." And of course, the mom, sorry, I'm going to be confusing there. Lee's mother is there as well. Let's just call her Satan Nun. Satan Nun is there as well. Lee has to shoot the little girl's father, her partner, to try to keep him from killing his own daughter. And then to stop Satan Nun from doing anything, Lee has to kill her too. Last shot is Lee holding a gun. She's going to shoot and destroy the doll to hopefully break the spell, although it's not very clear. If you destroy the dolls, you release the little orb of, this all sounds silly and I love the silliness of this actually, you release the little orb of evil, or whatever you want to call it, from the doll's head. It's not really clear if you do that, like exactly, do you free the person that the doll is made of to have a good life, or do you mess their life up? It's kind of unclear, because the one person we know that happened to during the course of the movie ended up killing himself. So, is it good or is it bad? She's ready to shoot it. She's out of bullets. Now, people have pointed out that she should have had more bullets. She didn't shoot that many bullets. I think she only shot 3 bullets. So, unless her gun was already half empty, there's no reason she shouldn't be able to shoot the doll. So one of the big questions is, what does this ending mean? Because she's basically just leaves her standing there. She's alone with the little girl. The doll's still there. The end. What does this mean? Well, first of all, I would say that the forces that are controlling things could definitely jam her gun or stop her from being able to shoot that doll. And people say, like, well, why didn't let her shoot the other people? Well, there's a good question. Because I think the main goal of Longlegs, and not really Longlegs, because Longlegs is essentially just a minion of Satan. So the main goal of Satan in this worldview is to destroy innocence and destroy the lives of true believers, because that is a great thing if you're evil. And in most cases, he has the family destroy themselves from the inside. And that's part of the ritual. That's part of, the evil. Well, in this case, since Lee has somewhat escaped her fate because she was supposed to be one of the little girls, since she somewhat escaped her fate, I believe that this final showdown has been kind of the plan the whole movie long. She is been pushed by events that she thought were random, that were not random, from beginning step one, from the moment at the beginning of the movie where she walks up to an unrelated, murderer's house and her partner is killed, causing her to go to a new case. From that moment, she was being manipulated to this final moment at this party, this birthday party of the little girl of her partner. And it wanted her to be the hand that killed this girl's father. And it wanted her to be the hand that killed Lee's own mother. So in a sense, cursing her by having to do this evil and to destroy further her own life, which has already been obviously pretty broken even up to this point. So essentially what I feel like is, whether you make it make sense or not, the forces have manipulated the fact that she could shoot and then she couldn't shoot. So the final moment is she's essentially alone and cursed. The little girl she's standing with is also cursed, still with that doll, and the doll is not destroyed. I mean, what happens after that, you don't know. But my guess is nothing good. And my guess is that is what they want you to be left with. Okay, I know it was a lot. It was a roundabout way to go about it. I would love to hear other people's thoughts because I did not even really touch on half of the stuff. But if you kind of don't like the movie and you wonder what people that like it like about it, for me, it's things I just talked about. This kind of conspiracy of evil that is just playing this woman like a puppet the whole movie. And the movie is about her slowly pulling the veils off and discovering that horrifying fact and being unable to stop the inexorable path that she's stuck on. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you liked the movie too. If you didn't, let me know what you didn't like about it. Maybe I'm totally off base. Maybe you just didn't like it because, I don't know, it was bad cinematography. I don't know what it is. Talk to you next week.